In the annals of world history, few tales are as captivating as that of Cleopatra VII. Renowned for her divine beauty and formidable intelligence, Cleopatra's legacy is intertwined with her relationships with Roman generals Mark Antony and Julius Caesar, etching her name indelibly into the human narrative. Her life, ending in self-chosen death at the age of 39, remains a subject of endless fascination. Born between 69 BC and 68 BC, Cleopatra's story began long after Alexander the Great's conquest of Egypt in 332 BC. Following Alexander's death, Ptolemy I, one of his generals and a close friend, ascended to power in Egypt. It was in this lineage that Cleopatra's father, Ptolemy XII, reigned until his death in 51 BC. This event led to Cleopatra and her 10-year-old brother, Ptolemy XIII, ascending to the throne of Egypt, continuing the tradition of royal sibling marriages. However, the plot thickens as Cleopatra, facing a conspiracy by her brother's advisors, was forced to flee to Syria in 49 BC. This moment marked the beginning of a tumultuous, yet fascinating journey that would see her not only reclaim her throne, but also become an iconic figure in world history. Don't forget to subscribe for more intriguing insights into history's most enigmatic figures. Your engagement lets us create more content for you. It's said that Cleopatra assembled an army of mercenaries and plotted her return to Egypt to reclaim power. Around the same time, the Roman general Pompey was engaged in a conflict with the Roman leader Gaius Julius Caesar. After being defeated at the Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BC, Pompey fled to Egypt. However, things didn't go well for him in Egypt, as Ptolemy ordered his assassination. Subsequently, Caesar travelled to the Egyptian capital of Alexandria. Ptolemy thought he had done Caesar a favour by eliminating his rival. According to legend, Cleopatra then secretly entered Caesar's quarters and sought his help in defeating her brother. She must have been persuasive, as a war soon erupted between Caesar's Roman forces and Ptolemy's forces. Ptolemy lost, fled the city, and is believed to have drowned in the Nile River. Following this, Caesar restored Cleopatra to the throne, which she took alongside her younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, then only 13 years old. Cleopatra later gave birth to Caesar's child, though he never publicly acknowledged the child as his own. The child of Cleopatra and Caesar was named Caesarion, often referred to as Little Caesar. Cleopatra followed Caesar to Rome, but following his assassination, where he was stabbed 23 times by a group of Roman senators, she quickly returned to Egypt. The death of Ptolemy XIV, Cleopatra's younger brother, under mysterious circumstances, left her ruling with her son, Caesarion, as co-regent, who became Ptolemy XV. To solidify her position as leader, Cleopatra began identifying herself with the goddess Isis, a common practice among royalty in Egypt and worldwide, to assert divine connections and strengthen their claims to the throne. This reinforced Cleopatra's firm hold on her rulership. However, Cleopatra faced continuous challenges. A significant one was the flooding of the Nile, which destroyed crops, leading to skyrocketing prices and widespread hunger among her people. Meanwhile, in Rome, 3 allies of the late Caesar, Mark Antony, Octavian and Lepidus, were contending with those responsible for Caesar's assassination. Both sides sought Cleopatra's assistance, and she decided to send 4 Roman legions, previously brought to Egypt by Caesar, to Rome to support the 3 men known as the Second Triumvirate. Their combined forces defeated Caesar's assassins at the Battle of Philippi in 42 BC. Afterward, Mark Antony and Octavian divided power between themselves. Mark Antony then summoned Cleopatra to Tarsus in Cilicia. According to popular accounts, Cleopatra made a grand entrance into the city on a magnificent ship, dressed in the robes of the goddess Isis. Antony, impressed by Cleopatra's support and captivated by her presence, quickly fell in love with her. He pledged his support to her and promised to help her overcome her rivals, including her exiled sister Arsinoe. Such was Antony's infatuation with Cleopatra that he left his wife and children in Rome and sailed for Egypt to be with her. While Antony was entangled in a dispute with Octavian over who wielded more power in Rome, he was also enjoying his time with Cleopatra. Following the Battle of Philippi, Antony and Octavian had effectively divided the Roman Republic, with Lepidus, the third member of the triumvirate, seemingly marginalized. During the winter of 4140 BC, Antony and Cleopatra spent time together in Alexandria. In this period, Antony returned some Roman territories to Cleopatra. In exchange, she committed to supply him with 200 ships for his campaign against the Parthian Empire. Antony then departed to engage in his military campaigns, and the couple wouldn't see each other for a few years. Despite the distance, they maintained a connection, reportedly through Cleopatra's spies in Antony's camp and through regular correspondence. During this separation, Cleopatra gave birth to 2 children, a boy named Alexander Helios and a girl named Cleopatra Selene II. Antony acknowledged both as his offspring. The names, symbolizing the sun and the moon, were emblematic of Cleopatra's power and influence. Despite Antony leaving his wife Fulvia and children for Cleopatra, Fulvia was determined to reclaim him. Some suggest she initiated the Perusine War against Octavian, Antony's rival, as a means to impress her husband. However, other historians argue that the war would have occurred regardless of her motives. Unfortunately, Fulvia's efforts were unsuccessful, and she was exiled. Tragically, she died while attempting to reunite with Antony. In the meantime, Antony faced challenges as key allies shifted their allegiance to Octavian, compelling Antony to reconcile with him. This reconciliation involved marrying Octavian's half-sister, Octavia, in a union that was more diplomatic than romantic. Meanwhile, in Egypt, Cleopatra's reign was flourishing. The populace was content, and her grip on power was solid. Antony once again sought Cleopatra's support in his campaign against the Parthian kingdom. In gratitude for her assistance, he granted her and her children several territories that Rome had previously seized from Egypt. These territories included parts of Syria, Lebanon, Cyprus, Crete, and what is now known as Libya. When Antony and Cleopatra reunited, Antony met his children for the first time. They discussed Cleopatra's conflict with Herod and Antony's military campaigns. Reigniting their love, Cleopatra's power was bolstered by her newly acquired territories, reaching a peak of strength. However, back in Rome, Octavian was causing unrest. He questioned why a foreign queen was gaining so much power, which stirred both public and political discontent. Octavian cleverly manipulated the situation, contrasting Antony's desertion of his dutiful wife for Cleopatra. He paid homage to Antony's deceased wife Fulvia, including erecting statues in her honour, which further swayed public opinion. While Antony and his army were en route to battle the Parthian Empire, Cleopatra accompanied them. During this journey, she became pregnant again and eventually returned to Egypt to give birth. The child was named Ptolemy Philadelphus. Antony's campaign against the Parthian Empire was a disaster, resulting in the loss of thousands of troops. He retreated to what is now Beirut, Lebanon, where he and his remaining forces awaited Cleopatra's assistance. When Cleopatra arrived with her troops, Antony made a crucial decision. Rather than returning to Rome in defeat and facing his adversaries, he chose to go to Alexandria with Cleopatra. In Alexandria, Antony prepared for another campaign against the Parthian Empire. Even Octavian sent reinforcements from Rome to aid him, though rumours suggested Octavian's gesture was meant to embarrass Antony, showcasing his supremacy. By this time, Octavian had become very influential. He persuaded the Roman public and the elite that Antony intended to abandon Rome permanently to establish a new capital in Egypt with Cleopatra. Consequently, the Roman Senate stripped Antony of all his titles. Now isolated, Antony and Cleopatra stood together. In 32 BC, Octavian declared war against Cleopatra. In 31 BC, the Battle of Actium unfolded disastrously for Cleopatra and Antony. Their forces were soundly defeated by Octavian's armies. Following the defeat, both fled to Egypt, but soon separated. Antony attempted to gather more troops, while Cleopatra returned to Alexandria. Shortly after, Octavian began his invasion of Egypt, aided by Herod. Antony managed to win a minor skirmish against Octavian's forces at Alexandria's Hippodrome. The events that followed remain somewhat unclear and are steeped in dramatic accounts. It's believed that after his ultimate defeat, Antony was captured by Octavian, while Cleopatra secluded herself in a tomb with her closest allies. In a strategic move, Cleopatra sent a message to Antony, falsely claiming she had committed suicide and planned to immolate herself with her treasures. However, she did not follow through with this plan. Upon receiving the message, Antony, overwhelmed by despair, either fell on his sword or stabbed himself in the stomach, effectively taking his own life. According to the historian Plutarch, Antony, mortally wounded, was brought to Cleopatra in her tomb, where he died in her arms at the age of 53. Subsequently, Cleopatra was captured by Octavian's forces before she could follow in Antony's tragic footsteps. However, she was permitted to embalm Antony and bury him in her tomb before being taken captive. Cleopatra was then detained by Octavian. Reportedly, she defiantly told him that she refused to be paraded in triumph through Rome, showcasing his victory. Octavian initially chose not to execute her. Cleopatra learned through a spy that Octavian planned to take her and her children to Rome to be displayed as trophies of his conquest. Resolved not to let this happen, Cleopatra decided to end her own life in her palace in August 30 BC, with her loyal servants choosing to do the same. While popular tales suggest she died from the bite of a venomous snake, such as an asp, it's more plausible that she used a sharp pin coated in poison to take her own life. Octavian, deprived of the opportunity to parade a captured queen through Rome, was undoubtedly displeased by Cleopatra's suicide. However, he granted her one final dignity, to be buried alongside her former lover, Antony. Thus concludes the life of an extraordinary woman. So profound was her impact that her story has transcended into a legendary tale, enduring for over 2,000 years, captivating imaginations to this very day.